Evening, everyone. Welcome back to NPTEL live session for the course transition method in organometallic chemistry and biology. So, in last session, I'll just give you a brief what we have done in the last live session. So, we have basically covered all these topics: ring closing metathesis, asymmetric RCM, tandem reaction, ring opening, ring closing metathesis, and we initiated to talk about alkyne metathesis. So, in today's session, we will be taking alkyne metathesis, which is involving both ene as well as ine. So, how the mechanism and the things work. So, we will take that into picture. Also, at the end of the live session, we will be taking up some problems so that would be helpful for you to solve the problems which are actually there in the assignment. If if there is any doubt, any query in between the lecture or you have from the previous sessions, please feel free to unmute yourself and or put your question in the chat box. So we will wait for 2 to 3 minutes for others to join, and then we can start with the session. So here I have written the topics that have to be covered today. Uh, since we have talked about the alkyne metathesis two or three times, and last session also has been ended up talking about the alkyne metathesis. So today we will start with the enine metathesis. That means earlier when alkyne metathesis was there, we were talking about two different alkynes over there. Right now we are taking one alkene, one alkyne, and how the metathesis uh, works, what is the expected product, and which one, which particular pathway is being followed to get you the favorable product. So, followed that, we will be talking about a second example where ring closing has to be done in presence of alkene and alkyne. This particular reaction or metathesis reaction follows could be possible in three ways. Either the ene first mechanism would be followed, or ine first. I'm talking about the reactivity, or it would undergo the metallocycle kind of intermediate, and they have been given by different scientists that we will be talking about later. Third part is to when we are initiating to understand the mechanism behind E9 metathesis, we need to know what are the pros and cons compared to the alkene metathesis. Followed by, once this is done, we will be talking about oligomerization and polymerization of alkenes and alkynes, the shell higher olefin process, and its examples with mechanism. And lastly, we will be discussing some problems to give you a feel that, okay, how we have to apply these concepts in the problem solving approach. So let's start. So we have first enine metathesis. So what is enine? This part comprises of alkene and the ine comes from alkyne. This ene and ine gives you enine. So that means if I'm having a substrate which is an alkene substrate and the other one I'm having which is an alkyne substrate, they are undergoing metathesis in presence of the active catalyst. This is our metal carbene we are taking as the catalyst, which we already know. We generally talk about the Grubbs catalyst. So now I'm directly writing the names of the catalyst. So if a person does not know about these things, I would suggest better to go and revise the earlier session so that because it saves our time, we don't have to write the whole structure as it is not important to be written over here. So what we have already seen in earlier cases in alkene metathesis that this is the species which actually react with your alkene to further continue the reaction and it will undergo a cyclobutane kind of intermediate and then we'll give you the product. Now here we have an alkene and we have an alkyne. Which one will react with metal carbene? So there is a competition. So we are taking firstly the ene first mechanism. That means alkene is going to react with your metal carbene catalyst. So how it works? We have R1 and we have this CH2. So as we know that if I'm writing over here, so if I will write like this way, it will this bond will come here, this will come here. This is just a rearrangement. So we have R1, here it would be M, and the other part would be CH2, right? Now it would undergo rearrangement step. Earlier this was having a bond with each other. Now this will have a bond and CH2 would be released. I'll draw it in the next step. So what I was showing that if we have R1, M, CH2, now this will be getting rearranged So now we have new olefin, the active species, and it will give you side product as CH2CH2. This will come into picture later. Now, when we have this particular moiety, and now it has to be reacted with your alkyne. So we have R1, M, and we were having R2 this way. So it would undergo R1, here it was M. There's a bond to the R2, double bond here, and like this way. Now, these two are going to make a bond, and this will go here. So it will come as R1, double bonded carbon, and then R2, followed by here it is going to have a single bond which is connected with your M. Now, if this goes, now I'm reacting it with again CH2 and CH2. So what it will do, it would again release MCH2, which was our starting catalyst. And ultimately, we will be ending up having this is our top. Right? So this is one way. If on the other hand, second possibility, we did it, this was our first possibility. So now the same thing, R1, M, and this side it is alkyne and your R2 here. So now try to make the bonds. Here it would be double bond and here it is R2. Now they are distant to each other. So this will make a bond and here it will rearrange. So it was R2. This is having your metal. Once it is being treated with CH2CH2, it will release your active species. And instead of this one, we will end up having so this is your second possibility, and this becomes compared to this particular species. This one, so it is your, say for example, A, and this is your B. This is more favorable. Why? Because two moieties, R1 and R2, they are far apart. Whereas in this case, they are close. So because of the reaction constraints, steric constraints, it is more favorable. So your second possibility is coming as more favorable, where R1 and R2 are at the opposite sides. So I hope this has been clear. So this is one mechanism, one type of mechanism, that is Ene mechanism, Ene first mechanism. It is the most popular among Ene-ion metathesis. So this we have seen. We have taken the alkyne substrate in presence of the metal carbene, how the ene is going to react with your active species and then make a new olefin which would react with your alkyne. Now there are two possibilities to react with your ion system. So where we have seen first and second possibility could give us more favorable product as the two R1 and R2 groups are far apart. We'll take example quickly. So here we are taking TBSO, an alkene ene part, and here we are having tosyl group. So in presence of metal carbene, this is your catalyst again. Now, as we have said that it will follow ene first mechanism. That is MCR2 is going to react with your alkene part first. So here it will go. We have TBSO. This is your M. This is your RR group. But if I'll just take the CH2, that will make my job little easy. This is your CH2, H and H. Right? Now again the rearrangement. So here the bond will form and it will release CH2, double bond CH2, which would come at the last step. So we will be having a new metal carbene, which is your metal bound. Now this will react with your alkyne. So now it has to react with your, so this is my alkyne, which is having a two-sided group. Now, so this part is your alkyne. Again, we will be having TBSO. So this is forming M. Here it is having double bond and this OTS. Now rearrangement again starts. We'll form double bond here. So this should be ending up having TBSO, CH2, one more double bond. Then this is having CH2 and OTS, and this part is having double bond N. Now when this reacts with your CH2 and CH2, it would release M double bond CH2 and ending up having TBSO. Double bond OTS. So this way you have to see how you can proceed your reaction. If you know the mechanism, if you know the steps to follow, the product formation becomes very easy. You can expect what product is going to be there. So it's easy to isolate it. If you know like which step has to be taken at the very first. Next example we can take in this regard because this is quite useful examples. The more practice you will do, the more better you will for the understanding of it. So we are taking an alkene and we are taking an alkyne in presence of MCH2. So again, it will follow ene mechanism. So since we are having this chain MCH2, this will react here, it will go here, and it will form M. And then this chain is coming over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The chain goes here. Now the bond will be formed between these two. This is having direct. So this metal is directly bonded with this carbon, which here, and here it will form a new bond. It would release your side product as CH2CH2, and the new bond now is in between M double bonded bromine. Now this will react with your alkyne group, so AC. So here this is the carbon which would be having M TMS. Here it was having double one. If you find any difficulty in assigning, you can just give the number. It is 1, 2, this is 3, this is 4. So this one is 4, 3 is having CH2OAC, 2 is having this long chain, and this is 1. Okay. Now we have to rearrange the bond. So the new bond would be formed with this one, and this would come in particular way. And here we will be having M double bond TMS, and this is having here double bond with the long chain also. I see. And when this reacts with again CH2CH2, it would release your MCH2, and you would ended up having, instead of metal carbon, you will be having the product with a double bond CH2 here, and again this moiety is OAC. So this is your product. There is another possibility also. Here we have checked the one side attack, one possibility of the region. Sorry. So here if you'll see, the attack was TMS was towards the M metal and OEC group was away. If we'll do the opposite side, how it will give and what would be the expected product. So here I'm writing the other possibility in white pen. So here we were having a metal double bonded, and earlier we were having TMS group. Now we are having OEC group here, and TMS group here. So let's see how it goes. So now again we'll give 1, 2, this has 3, this has 4. So we'll just first make a metallocyclobutane. 1, this is 2, 2 is having bromine group over here. 3 is having TMS group with a double bond. This is 4, which is having CH2OAC. Now the new bond has to be formed between like this. So it would now give you the following product. So it is OAC, double bond metal. There's single bond and it is making double bond. Br, this is having TMS group. And when it is reacted with CH2 double bond CH2, it would give your MCH2 back. So now your product is OAC, double bond, and TMS. Now if you will see here are two products. Earlier, what was the scenario? So earlier the scenario was this OAC and this group were at the same site, but here you will see they are far apart from each other. Therefore, this is more favored, and this reaction is called to be a regio as well as stereoselective, because we have to go with both the possibilities and to check out more opposite sides. So we need to check which possible product, which possible pathway is giving to the more stable product, and that would help you to analyze it better way. So this is it for the ene-ion metathesis, where we have discussed 2-3 examples and we have taken the mechanism in full details. I hope you guys have understood it well. If not, then please feel free to ask your question or doubts. So we'll take a summary at the end of the session. Now we will quickly move to our second part of the discussion, which is ring closing ene-ion metathesis. The name itself is self-explanatory. Generally, when we talk about the alkene metathesis or alkyne metathesis, there would be both alkenes or both alkynes in aliphatic form, open chain form, and then we cyclize it to form a ring. So here also we are taking an example where we will be having an alkene as well as an alkyne. So it will undergo metathesis, as we know that we follow in first mechanism. So out of the two, the reactivity of alkene with your MCH2 is favored. So here, if you will see, I'll just draw it like this way. So this will go like this. Ultimately, we will be having MCH2, and this goes like this way. Now further, this bond will be when it would release CH2, CH2. Same mechanism, but just the examples are different. So then we are having now our new product is new metal olefin is this M, and here we have carbene. Now again cyclization. So it would first form this product. Here it is M, so it's double bond like this way. Now again rearrangement, it would lead to cyclizing your product, and it is giving M, and after reacting it with the product that we have used earlier, it would give you MCHT, so CH2 catalyst, which is regenerated, and this is your product. So this way only you could think of what we started with. We started with an open chain system where we are having one alkene, and here it is alkyne, and that is our catalyst, and how it forms a cyclic group. This is your cyclic product, and that's the only possibility which is favored. So generally, if we give a general representation, so any number of carbon you can expect which is having an alkene bond with R1 and R2 substituents, and an alkyne bond with R3 substituent, right? So it's in where R1, R2, R3 could be anything. So in presence of your catalyst, this would be the possible product that you're going to have. So this is the bond it will make, and ultimately it will be like R1, R2, and R3. So that would be your conjugated diene system. So it's a general representation. We can take the example for it. So if I am having a biphenyl system, two phenyl rings connected with each other, and here at one side I'm having alkyne, and other side I'm having an alkene. So in presence of this tungsten catalyst, PHOME, which has been given by Catch 1985. Now we know that this particular product we have already seen that they are going to form a double bond over here and followed by the double bond and the ring at the other side. So the possible product that we are going to have, so this will cyclize. So where the aromaticity is maintained, and ultimately it will give you this product. So this is your conjugated diene system, which is actually conjugated even further. So this is the way you can expect. So we only told that whatever the ring is there, it would be having a product. Since the R group that we are having is H, here R3 is H, and R1 is CH3, and R2 is H. So that's why we said whatever the ring would be forming, and the we would be having an alkene over there, which is having R3, R1, R2. Since R1 is your CH3, this is your CH3, R1, this is your H, R2, and this is your H, which is R3. So this is the way only. If you know that kind of mechanism and you already expect what product is going to be formed, that would be very straightforward. So as we were already telling that there are three particular mechanisms that we generally consider for this ene-ine metathesis. One is the ene first, that means the reactivity of your alkene with the catalyst. Second is the ine first, that your alkene metal carbene is reacting with your alkyne substrate and then alkene substrate. And third one is to have a and the third one is the formation of a metacycle. So this we have already seen so many times. It's the most popular. Iron first one also has been given by Katz in 1985, and this meta cycle thing also been given in 1991 by Frost. So we have already discussed in first how the procedure works. We will now quickly see how the mechanism goes with your iron first mechanism. So now basically we are just going to take the same thing, and if you have so if you have this alkene group and if you have this alkyne group, what we have taken earlier, say for example this you have, and now my metal carbene is first going to interact with this system. This way we are going to form the intermediate. Alkene remain as it is. This is R, this is M, and now new bond formation between this one. It would be metal. This is particular way, and here it is having double bonded system with R, right? So we can also write this particular thing in this particular form. Where metal is close proximity with our system. And now here again the bond formation would occur. So which will make a new bond over here, increase this over here. This would again come as M double bond. Okay, here we can consider the, because we have to take the same kind of moiety. So it would regenerate the same thing. And here we will be getting a closing of the string. This is the release, and it will form R double bonded this way. So this is your ion mechanism, which is being shown over here. It follows this particular path. So this chain could be any number, and this would go following this particular route. Followed by, we have third type is metallocycle, which is given by Prost. So this happens in presence of acetic acid and the metal, and that would give you, if I have whatever the alkene and alkyne are having, we would tend to make a cyclopenta pentene kind of intermediate, and this is your metallocyclopentene. That is the only way we could get it over here, and followed by the reductive elimination of your metal goes away, and therefore this comes like this way, and here it's R. It would rearrange and would give you the product. It's double bond, and R. So in this way, none of the alkene or alkyne reacts. It's just a metallocycle product where metal when goes, it gets reduced, and therefore we get the falling product. So the point over here that we need to understand, in Frost mechanism, we get this in Frost mechanism. Frost has given the mechanism which talks about metallocyclopentene as an intermediate, and in Cat's ion mechanism, it follows the ion first, like reactivity of ion first. But among all the three, ion mechanism is being looked as the most popular one. So we are done with the part of this in ion, understanding the three mechanisms. Now we can take up some example and the pros and cons of it. Okay, so now continuing what we were talking about. So if we have this example where we have an alkyne, and we have a substituted alkene also, where the two groups are COT in presence of our ruthenium catalyst. So what would be the expected product? We have already talked too much of it. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it would be a 6-member chain with a double bond. We already know, and this would give you substituents over here. You just follow whatever the mechanism we have shown earlier, and earlier it would be having an alkene bond over here with pH substitution. So this is being formed in 86% with 98, more than 98% E product, where we have started with E by Z ratio as 80 to 20. That means this alkyne, 80% was in E form, 20% as C form, but at the end, what we had was E ratio, both alkenes facing towards each other. So it's 98%. So this is giving more selectivity towards whatever the perfect position of or your position of your alkene has to be there. So there are certain pros and cons of this E9 metathesis. So in this one, the limitation is your cross metathesis. In E9 metathesis, the limitation is the cross metathesis. So that's why generally this is performed under high dilution to avoid any intermolecular cross metathesis. Whereas in E9 mechanism, we have seen homodimerization is a problem, which is not seen in case of your E9 metathesis. It's a problem in E9, E9, but in E9, not a problem because we don't see this over here. And also this metathesis reaction, they provide very too much of alternatives for Wittig reaction, alkyne couplings or McMurray synthesis. So these are certain enanine metathesis pros and cons. Now the main other important topic that we considering this one only, as I said, that only con that we have in E9 is the cross metathesis, and to avoid it, this is being performed, especially ring closing E9 metathesis. It is performed in high dilutions so that we can only be having the intramolecular synthesis of E9, not the intermolecular cross metathesis. Say, for example, if I am having this particular group, right? So if the other molecule which is having the same moiety, it's very close to each other, that is intermolecular, then there would be a possibility of cross metathesis of this with this one, where we will not be ending up having the same product. So that's why high dilutions have to be done to distant the two molecules and to have intramolecular ring closing in ion metathesis. This is very important. I hope you guys have understood. Now, the second last topic or the main topic of our discussion today is to understand the oligomerization and polymerization thing. Oligomerization and polymerization of alkene and alkyne. So here, this actually follows, sorry, so this actually follows two rules. One is the coordination step of the alkene or alkyne, and followed by the insertion into MR bond, which you will get to know about it. And the most important step also, the formation of the product over here, that depends on the competition between chain growth and chain termination steps. This you have to understand very carefully what we are trying to say over here. So if I'm talking about alkene polymerization mechanism, so mainly we use here Ziegler-Natta catalyst. So the thumb rule is if we have this kind of catalyst, if metal is your electronically zip center, late transition metal, if after manganese, then it would undergo oligomerization. And if you have metal electron deficient early transition metal, then it would follow the polymerization. So we'll see one example. Now we have this kind of pH, and here we have nickel. There would be a chord system, cyclooctadiene as a ligand. And if you see carefully, this is your alpha, this is your beta, and beta is having two hydrogen. So first step is beta hydrogen elimination and the release of chord, which is nothing but this. Right? Once it is done, that is having hydride is going to be tagged onto your system. This whole ring we are symbolizing as this particular ring, not to make it again and again. And once this is our active species, so once this is formed, now I have nickel hydride having the, so this is your olefin, simple CH2 we are taking. So the first step, that is your coordination of the olefin, because there is a vacant space. So here, firstly, we will be having coordination with alkene. Now, the second step is the insertion between the metal hydrogen bond. So what we expect, this CH2 and this CH3 becomes over here, and ultimately we will be ending up having a vacancy over here. And this process continues when we have a second olefin, and therefore it would form PO. Here the second bond CH2CH3, followed by this again continues to give you CH2. Earlier it was CH2CH3. Now there would be a chain of 4 carbons. And if you want to see something, that this is alpha, this is beta. Now if beta hydrogen elimination goes, so that will cause the termination of your step. So if beta hydrogen elimination occurs, what will happen? It would regenerate the catalyst. It would form a nickel hydride, plus it would give you a product like this would be a double bond, and this is your product. So it stopped. So this is now your product. If beta hydrogen elimination is faster, then there is a chain termination. It won't further continue to make any further chain, and this has stopped over here. Other way, if beta hydrogen is not happening, it's slow or it is not favored, it's not happening, then chain continues to grow. So it totally depends upon what is the possibility of the chain termination at that particular step. So it would give you the nickel, and the chain was early like this. Here it was, you can see. Then we are having n times of olefin. This is the insertion, and ultimately we have PO. So this is n times olefin we are using. This is nickel, and then R. This is any chain number. And at the end, when it is having this particular way, now when we have a very long chain, now the beta elimination can occur, and it would give you the active species regenerated. That's your alpha olefin formation. Now this alpha olefin, now what will happen? This alpha olefin that we have obtained from polymerization, that would undergo isomerization. That followed by that we will be having olefin metathesis. This we have already covered in our previous slide section, and this would then follow CHOP process, which would give you in between C8, C12 to C18 molecule. So this is the way we are going to get our possible products when we are having coordination as well as insertion step. What chain is going to be formed, that is completely dependent on where your chain growth and termination steps are happening. If it happens at a very early stage where the beta elimination is there, which we saw earlier here, if it happens here, then it is stopped at this point itself. If it does not happen here, depending on the rate of the reaction and the energy of that particular step, then it will continue to grow to a longer chain until unless that beta elimination steps becomes feasible, and therefore would be having a long chain alpha olefin. So I hope you guys have understood about it. So I'll just give a brief summary over here. So firstly, we saw the ene-ine metathesis. What is a possible product of it? And we have already seen that ene first mechanism is more favorable compared to the ine first and metallocycle. Okay. Second, we saw the ring closing ene-ine metathesis. So the main feature was that it occurs in dilutions to avoid intramolecular cross metathesis. This has to be considered. The next point of ours was to discuss about after that we have uh, seen different types of it, and ultimately we have also seen the formation of conjugated dienes, and lastly we have talked about oligomerization and polymerization, where the formation of the product depends upon the chain growth and chain termination step. So with this, we end up our session for the discussion, and We will now take up the examples, different problems which could help you to understand this particular thing in a better way. So here we have the assignment. The first question says the catalyst used in the given reaction is. So we already know we need to identify this is your alkene moiety, this is your alkyne moiety, and when the catalyst is there, it is forming an ene-ine metathesis. So this is the ene-ine metathesis, which happens in presence of your Grubbs catalyst. This we have already seen. The metal carbene and the mechanism also we have checked. If you will see, this is Ignonata, this is carbine catalyst. This is just a Wilkinson system, and this is one which is your Grubbs catalyst, and therefore the answer is A. Now the product of the following ene-ine ring closing metathesis is an R. Now here we have to see this particular thing in. So we can see the mechanism here. So we have here this double bond and this triple bond and this double bond over here. What would be the corresponding products that we are going to have that we'll check here? Since we know that this is a substitution of your, this is actually the substitution of your alkyne. So this is the alkene that you are going to consider, and this is the alkyne you are going to consider. So firstly, the mechanism says that it would undergo. Here it is double bond, the MCH2, because we are considering this ruthenium CH2PH as your MCH2, just to be on a little convenient side. Okay, so here these rearrangements will happen. I'm just writing this particular. Now, this would give you CH2 out, and it would be forming M. And now this is your alkyne and this is your alkene. It will start reacting like this way, and ultimately you will be having this is your M, this is your double bond. Now this double bond goes over here. You ended up having and here. So you can see this is the kind of product. It's 1, 2, 3. At third position, if you will see only one structure which is resembling this one, where it's 1, 2, and 3, two double bonds, and it's forming. So in this way only, you have to draw the whole mechanism. Consider the alkene insertion, alkene reaction with the metal carbene, and then only alkyne will react to the newly formed metal carbene. So this would be helpful for understanding this. Now the following conversion can be achieved by. That's the next question. So this is your question. If you will see carefully, this is your alkene, this is your alkyne, and it's a kind of different alkene. So firstly, to have a bond over here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. It would be forming a 7-membered ring, which we can see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's a 7-membered ring. Now, if you will see, after making the seven-membered ring, whatever it is forming, it is cyclizing with our alkene and giving us a product. So here it's nothing but your ene-ine ring closing metathesis, which is followed by the Diels-Elder reaction, because Diels-Elder, wherever the double bond would be there and the other double bond is there, say for example here, this you can try again by yourself. So these will cyclize and therefore one more ring would be formed, which you can see over here, right? So therefore the answer is ene-ine ring closing metathesis followed by the Diels-Elder reaction. Now, the major product of the following reaction is we have the substrate, we need to find out the major substrates of it to form this particular system. So, if you need to understand how this particular system is forming, since we are taking in metal carbene, so it's understood that we need to have at least two systems. So, here, if you carefully see, it's making a cyclic product over here, which can only be forming like when we are having some open chain systems and they are undergoing the formation of this system. Now, if I will try with the first one itself, and this particular moiety going to, until unless you try it, you write it over there, you won't be able to understand the product formation. So first, the metal CH2 any carbene which has been given over here, I'm just trying to react it over here. So it would ultimately give you a product like M and now this alkene and this alkyne can undergo to make a five-membered ring, which we can see over here. This would ultimately be reacting with the CH2 to form the CH2, and therefore we would be ending up having this product. So I could only see the possibility with this one because to have a cyclic ring with the double bond, that could only be possible if it is having an alkene and alkyne. Here it is not possible because no alkyne is present. Here it is two alkenes are there and there is no alkene. So these all the other products would not be possible except the A. So this you please try and check. Now another thing that has been given, if you'll see, it's a metal carbine system, and metal carbine system is always, it's a catalyst for alkyne metathesis. So it's a very straightforward answer. Also in the product, if you'll see, it's increasing the number of chain of the alkynes, and it's a polymerization thing. But of what polymerization? It's an alkyne polymerization, because this is not a acyclic diene metathesis. It's not a diene system. This is not a ring opening system. Nothing is opening, and it's not even an enine. There is only ine and ine present. And in present, there are so many hints in this particular reaction. If you carefully see, only the ine and ine chain is getting extended in with the release of another ion, alkyne. The second part is metal carbide they have used, which is only used for alkyne metathesis. And also among the options, they are very straightforward to understand. Neither the diene is present nor any ring opening is there, and there is no one ene in alkyne. So it's very straightforward, and the answer is B. Now you have another reaction. What would be the products of the following reaction? So this chain is intact in everything, so we don't have to look at this one. Only the part that we have to look at over here, there is ene, there is I, and we already know that how it forms. It would be having a double bond over here and followed by the ring. Now, only point that we have to carefully see, if it forms like this, and we have already seen, if it makes a double bond at this part and at the double bond, either it would be having another double bond over here or at here. But since alkyne is at this particular point, so this is the only possible product that we are going to have. So the answer is your A. You can just try by yourself because we have already discussed this in a proper manner in ein ring closing in metathesis. So this would be a straightforward thing to carry forward. So these are certain three questions that we can easily take up in the next lecture, where this would involve more about the oligomerization and the nickel Shaw process. This little straightforward ethylene oligomerization, which we have already seen, that in case of that we have taken this OP and all those sorts of things, where the nickel was being used as a nickel hydride catalyst, and that has followed up the reaction. I'll just let you know. So what for which solvent generally we used for the ethylene oligomerization process, butane diol, and but we will take up these things in next live session. So let's not worry about this one. I would suggest that please do try to solve these reactions by yourself. Write down the full mechanism, and then they would be straightforward to predict the product. They look so complex just by looking at them. It is complex over there, but when you understand what substrate is going to react with other thing, that's it. That is like where you have to just answer and predict the questions. So if there is any doubt, I would be very happy to answer your questions. Please put the question in the chat box or unmute yourself if at any point of time you have not understood the reaction. Thank you.